we're not offering the kind of education or the kind of skill development, the kind of thought processes that are required for the emerging world.
Well, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to Tech Talk Tuesday. I'm very excited with our guest today. He's an Aitchisonian and FC College alumnus. He has decades of experience in media with TV Asia, STED, Geo TV, and obviously advertising with Interflow, and has most recently been involved in the startup space via the National Incubation Center and various other entrepreneurial ventures. And so, Faisal, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Sadaf. So, at the age of 16, I wanted to be a nuclear physicist, right? So that's my kind of love for tech. I didn't get to go to MIT, which I wanted, because my parents didn't want to let me go out of the shores of Pakistan because I was the only son. So I ended up joining the army, jumping out of planes, diving into the sea, right? Left that and decided I'll find a more challenging world, which is advertising and media. So that naturally gravitated towards future technologies, meaning the internet, meaning mobile telephony. So I've been there and done a lot of things in those spaces, both locally and internationally. I've worked in different markets.
Why EdTech? Your latest venture is in EdTech. So what interested you in that? What is it, and why now?
Because education, right, is one of the largest problems we have in terms of number of kids out of school. So that's one thing. That's access to education. Whether there are enough schools, there's enough infrastructure. So the answer is no, there isn't, right? And even if we spend a few $1 billion more, we still won't have universal access. So you have to apply technology, right, to be able to create that access. Number one. Second is the quality of what education is being offered. We're not offering the kind of education or the kind of skill development, the kind of thought processes that are required for the emerging world. There's a lot of talk about STEM and saying, STEM is extremely important. STEM has always been important, right? So it's not just today that STEM has become important. It's always been important. But now it has an absolutely unavoidable perspective, right? So if you don't start off with children at the age of 5 and 6 and start getting them to start thinking critically, recognize the problem, start thinking of how to solve that problem, right? Which is what STEM is all about. It's a set of subjects or technologies that you apply to solve problems. So what we're doing is we are taking the STEM courses, right, and making them more accessible in a manner that people have not been, or children have not been taught before. Now we started with class 9, and then we're going to work downwards and upwards.
And so you're going directly to consumers, and how has the uptake been?
We must make sure that children start to enjoy STEM, right? That is what is behind Senpai also, right? We're trying to make those subjects more accessible, make physics more accessible, make chemistry more accessible. In about, 8 weeks that we've launched, right? So we are seeing very good traction because both schools and parents have actually seen what Senpai can do, how engaging it is for the student, right? So we've thought of it. We've worked through every bit of it. We look at numbers on a weekly basis, or how many people we've got on board, how many have watched how many videos, what has been their reaction to what we put up. And we are also focusing on tier 2 cities, right? So we believe, that they need to have access to better, better teaching, to better mentoring, to better coaching. That is necessary. Now, it's not possible again to go out there physically everywhere and do that. So we're seeing good traction. Our targets are actually being exceeded on a weekly basis.
Why an app? Do you think that a low resource setting is a barrier to this?
In 2011, we were using SMS to teach English. There was a teacher, right, who was actually who started when he came to us. And when I say us, I'm talking about the young group, about Geo. right? So we had this SMS-based platform called SMS All. And on that, he was teaching English. When he came to us, he had 28,000 students. In about another 14 months, he had gone to 125,000 students all over Pakistan, right? Every district of Pakistan. And he was teaching English just using SMS. Because people didn't have smartphones then. You didn't have WhatsApp then. You didn't have, and most of these social platforms at that time. So it can be done.
How much of a barrier has been language, particularly in the areas that you're trying to reach?
It isn't, because what we've done is we made the subject more accessible by using both Urdu and English, right? So that is one where the language barrier is concerned. It's more in Urdu than in English, right? To explain the concept and all that. Amazing thing is we've got 5 kids who are from the interior of Balochistan. It's actually a teacher at Cambridge University who's funding their courses. He's the one who's bought the physics course for them, right? And he's arranging for them to have access.
One of the questions I had in the after-school market, you're competing with hundreds of other things that encroach into children's free time, YouTube, TikTok, social media. Yeah. And so the bar for entertainment is actually higher. And so, what would be the incentive to learn in a space that's
very simple. Noisy? I mean, if you study the Baiju model, if you study the Baiju, let's say, business case also in Harvard, you're selling the future. You're actually selling a future. You're not just selling a subject or a course pack. You're actually selling a future. Better equipped for the future, right? That's what Senpai is all about. We'll equip you better for the future, right? We will bring subjects to you in an accessible form, in a very easily understood form, right? So not only do you score high marks in your metric, you're prepared, right, to go beyond, because you would have develop that understanding of each subject, right? Making it the wonder of science, right? The wonder of science, not the weight of science. Because what happens is the manner in which it is taught currently is just a weight. It's just heavy weight on a child's mind, right? Rather than the wonder that should be there. Children have immense ability, right? If you give them the opportunity, if you let them imagine, right? And what is coding all about? Right? Coding is about putting that imagination into practice. Right? I imagine what I can create. I imagine an application I can make that can do what I want it to do. I can control a computer and make it do things that I want it to do. That's when I write code. That's when I draw the logic path, right? And say, okay, this is how it's going to function. This is how it's going to act at my command.
Fantastic. Absolutely. So I'll give you a choice between the last question. Do you want to comment on STEM and gender, or would you want to comment on a big problem today that you think that EdTech can solve?
I think education is the big problem that I would say EdTech must solve. Like I said, we're not going to solve the problem of the education emergency we face as a nation. We are one of the lowest in terms of the education index, in terms of literacy, in terms of female literacy, female education. So we need to solve that, and only technology will help us do that.
Fantastic. It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. Really sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you, Sadaf. I'm glad we could have this conversation. And anytime, right, Old School wants to reach out, I'm here.